Hey everyone, I'm going to be hosting another draft race on this channel, and this one is going to be goofy, chaotic, and fun. 8 players, none of which are me, are going to be dividing into 4 teams and draft race an edited version of FE8 with changes submitted by my patrons and my YouTube community members. And that could include you if you want, if you can afford it. If not, no sweat. But if you do want to join, this could be a good time to do so. You have until January 28th to make up your mind on whether you want to join or not, and I'm going to go over the rules in this video to, help you figure that out. So here's how it's going to work. There's a post on my Patreon and a post on my YouTube community members tab where you can submit your changes, and it has all these rules on them. But in case you prefer listening over reading, or you can't read for some reason, I'm going to be explaining the rules here. So here's the rules from top to bottom. First of all, the more money you give me, the more changes you get. I've never pretended to be fair. I'm open to bribery. This is the Patreon tiers, so like C tier is 2 edits, B tier is 3 edits, A tier is 4 edits, and S tier is 5 edits. And for YouTube members, the prices are listed differently on there, but it's roughly the same amount of dollars for the same amount of edits. Just to give you an idea, C tier is $5, B tier is 10, A tier is 20, and S tier is 40. With a caveat that people that were already on Patreon, some of them decided, hey, I want to give you more money for more edits. And I was like, well, I can't stop you from creating alt accounts and signing up for it. Let me just save you the trouble. You can use my Streamlabs link to just donate me money at like 5 per edit, which is like the cheapest rate you can do here. And then you can just add on to that. So if you prefer doing that, let me know, please, and we can work something out. And thank you so much for giving me more money. But that is an option as well. But you can also just sign up for my Patreon for any tier you want. And if you want to ditch at the end of the month, you're just here to do like one thing, that's fine. Appreciate your donation nonetheless. So one edit, what does one edit mean? It means one change of one thing. It's hard to define, so I made a bunch of examples here. These are not meant to like limit your imagination, but just to get it started. And I've taken some liberties with like what I accept and what I haven't accepted. It's really hard to do this completely fairly, but just some ideas. You can change one of your characters' like base stats, like HP, strength, speed, etc. up to 5 points. Most people have been using this to add 5 points to their favorite stats on their favorite unit, basically. If you want to change movement, you can do that too, but that's only +2 move per change because movement is the best stat, as we all know. You can change the character's growths completely if you want. But the total has to be within either plus or minus 50% of what it used to be. So if a unit has, say, 270% right now, that can be changed to as little as 220% or as much as 320%. But you can adjust like them in any way you want. So if you want to just get rid of all of the character's luck to put it all in defense or speed or strength, you do you. Some people have done this and some people have not. It's up to you. In case you can't tell, submissions have been open for a little bit, and that does mean that it's a little bit limited on what you can do anymore because your changes kind of contradict another person's changes, but I'll explain that later. You can change one weapon's hit or crit by up to 20 points, or might or weight up to 5 points. Pretty self-explanatory. You can change the weapon's range. There are more range possibilities in this game than what is listed here, like 1, 2, or 1 to 2, or 2 to 3. This is not a technical limitation. This is a limitation for balance sakes. I don't want characters to end up with like basically custom-made ballistas and 3 to 10 range tomes. So this is to limit those options a little bit. Change one character's starting position, be it player, enemy, and NPC, so you can just move them around on a map. You can also move them between maps, by the way, but that comes later. You can swap the victory objectives of 2 maps, so you can turn a route map into a siege map, and then turn another siege map into a route map, or something entirely different. You can also just change one map's objective if you wish. You can change the effect of a weapon, a tome, an item, etc. So an example would be I want a vulnerary to heal you for 5 HP instead of 10. That would be a very plain one, but more weird possibilities are there. You can swap or move the location of an item, weapon, tome, etc. So for example, you got the warp staff in chapter 15. Let's move that to chapter 18 instead. Let's put it in a different sand place in the desert. Something like that is possible. Erica's rapier, she gets that in chapter prologue. Let's put it in chapter 5 instead. These are all possibilities. Change a formula, such as the doubling or promotion thresholds. So just a spoiler, this has already been done by someone. You can't contradict that change, so that's not an option, but there are many other possibilities that are still open. You can also just change the weapon triangle. You can also change what a reaver weapon does. These are all options. Changing characters' promo paths. For example, you can have Garrick promotes to Paladin. Again, you can't contradict someone else's change, but you could add an option if you want to. If someone already has 2 options, you want to add a third, you can do that. You can allow a unit or a class to use a new weapon type or take one away if they have multiple. So, for example, Franz is a Cavalier. Normally, you can take away his swords, but you can't take away Garcia's axes because then he wouldn't be able to use any weapons, and that's kind of sad. You can add an enemy to a map. Doesn't really matter what kind of enemy. Someone's already added a boss somewhere, a new boss. So there's pretty much no limits on that, as long as you don't get soft locked. We'll get into that. But you can't add promoted enemies until chapter 12, because I don't know if player characters are able to handle this. Like, again, it's a draft race. People might not have the access to all the characters they have in a normal playthrough. So, if you want to make any other changes, you can ask. You can ask here in the comments. You can ask on Patreon. You can ask on Discord. You can ask on YouTube. That's all open. I'll try to communicate as much as I can. Please ask your questions well before the deadline, though, so that I can answer them in time. So let me just read this out, because I think the way I wrote this is pretty succinct, and I don't really want to reword it on the fly. These changes are meant to slow down or surprise the players, but not soft lock them. They will be drafting and playing blindly, and I do want all of them to be able to finish the game, so let's not make a near unkillable boss. A good rule of thumb is if your change causes a problem, you should be able to go back 1 map ago to fix it, and I'll ask players to stagger their save files to allow this. And honestly, it probably should be fixable within the map itself. Preferably. I might have to change your thing if it actually takes a whole map reset, depending on how harsh it is. Like, going back to 1 map in chapter 3 is different from going back 1 map in chapter 15, obviously. So, yeah, cause problems, but not problems to the point where people just suffer too much, because I don't want to make these people miserable. I want to make them a little miserable, but not too much miserable. You are allowed to stack changes on top of someone else. So, for example, if Modi gives Naomi 5 strength, Grexius is allowed to give her another 5 strength. Feel free to collaborate with others here on Discord to make some units really good. If your changes contradict someone else's, first come, first serve. For example, if Modi gives Naomi 5 strength, no one else is allowed to reduce her strength base from there. I think this is pretty self-explanatory so far, so no commentary from me here. I reserve the right to make changes after the fact to ensure the event will be enjoyable. If I have to outright reject something, I will give the submitter a chance to change their submission. Basically what I said earlier. I want this to be fun and funny for everyone. So I'll try to do my best to do it. It will probably still be miserable in some parts, but I can limit the suffering. If you change something to any chapter after chapter 8, your changes can be applied to both routes. You can submit extra info for this if you want to. So for example, if you add an enemy to Erika's chapter 9, you may add that same enemy to Ephraim's chapter 9. And if you change Garrick's inventory in one route, it will also be changed in the other. This is to make sure that your changes are seen and not just lost to the wind because everyone goes Erika route while a bunch of people make changes to Ephraim route. Stuff like that. Now, this is not a rule. People have been abiding by it pretty well, but it's not necessarily a rule. I encourage you to nerf units that are good and or free, and to buff units that are bad. So you might not know what good and bad units are in the context of draft racing, and that's completely flipped upside down in this one, at least that's the intention. So here's an overview of the metagame. These units are free for everyone, Erika, Ephraim, Tethys, and Myr, so nerf them a bit. They shouldn't be nerfed too much because, you know, people still gotta play the game. They might not draft the optimal characters, but I felt like some variety would be nice. Free to use for everyone in the first couple chapters is Seth, of course. We gotta nerf him too. He will be draftable after that, by the way. I didn't really list that here, but he will be playable after that for people who drafted him. Franz, Vanessa, Cormac, and Tana need to be nerfed because they fly, and flying is really, really good right now. And this is underway, let's just say that. These units are very good. They don't really join early enough to be like carries or anything, but they do help a lot. It's Garrick, Dussel, and Saleh. Then we have some units that are like mid, that are sometimes like, people have been playing with these a lot more lately on the draft race server. So like Garcia and Gilliam, Lute and Arthur, and Dazla and Ross and Kyle and Mulder, Noel and Inez. I don't really know what to do with these because if they get buffed, they probably become really, really good. And if they get nerfed, they get really, really, really bad, depending on what happens. So just do funny things with them. And then there's some units that are just pretty bad most of the time, and we should probably buff them. They're Naomi, Renak, Colm, Joshua. Obviously, Renak and Colm have some utility, but they're not really combat units, so they should be buffed. Joshua, you could also put in mid if you wanted to, but obviously there's reasons why a sword lock unit is worse than these units, for example. And then there's some units that are they just never see use and they need help very, very badly. Natasha, Larchelle, Ewan, Marissa, Amelia. Marissa especially is in big trouble because she has a big recruitment cost on Erica routes and a medium recruitment cost, a still pretty big recruitment cost on Ephraim routes. So she needs some help. And I mean, I don't have to tell you what to do with him, do I? Nerf him to the ground, please, nerf him. Or make him good to, you know, annoy me. It's your money. And then if you don't know what to do, I put a bunch of examples here of stuff you can do that I think will be entertaining. I'll probably make some changes myself to balance it all out, or make some more funnies in here if I think like something has been completely untouched. So yeah, you can read these for yourself if you want to pause the video. I think at this point people will already have plenty of inspiration, because submissions have been going for a little bit. They've been open for a day. And they've been flooding in, so I thought I'd do a bit of a wider advertisement to make sure everyone who might want in on this to have a chance to do so. But it's not needed necessarily. We have a lot of changes already, and I think more will be coming in the upcoming days. So don't feel pressure to do it, but if you want to participate, it would be great. I'll be streaming the events. The date will be coming. It will be probably somewhere in February or March, but I'm still setting up the date. I'll probably know when I know how long it will take for Retina to edit the ROM. There's an FAQ here at the bottom. I'm very careful scrolling so that changes don't get spoiled. You can read these for yourself. This is probably an important one. Honestly, these are pretty important all overall. So no personal weapons, because I think it's funny if the effects of the edits are cascading. Skills that are not in the game are not allowed. So like no Paragon, no Gale Force, no Death Blow. But Pierce, Great Shield, and Sure Shot are allowed. And this I've already gone over, and this I've already gone over. And more questions will probably come up soon. Again, it's very hard to regulate this properly and completely balanced, so please bear with me as I say yes to some people and no to others. And, you know, just to make sure that it's clear, the footage that I'm putting on the other side of the screen as like a Subway Surfer thing, that's not representative of what it's actually going to be. This is like a thing I cobbled together in like 5 seconds to be goofy. Just to give you an idea of how dumb editing can be, and that's pretty much it. And also just to keep something moving on the screen. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Join if you want, or watch the stream, or both. And I'll see you on the other side. Bye!